Football is a contact sport, and we have seen guys get their bells rung, but head injuries and the safety of players has maybe never been more of a focus than it is right now. And a new study has revealed the impact those repeated hits to the head have on players, particularly in the NFL. There is a new study looking at the brains of 210 former players and found 99% of them had CTE, or chronic traumatic encephalopathy. CTE is a brain disease. It can result from repeated head trauma, and the prevalence appeared even higher for players in the NFL. In fact, CTE was found in 110 of 111 brains of deceased former NFL players. So it is highlighting a lot of concern for play on the field and safety. The NFL did release a statement in response to this study saying it's committed to supporting scientific research into CTE and advancing progress in the prevention and treatment of head injuries. Joining us now to talk more about this is Deborah Crawley. She is the Executive Director of the Brain Injury Alliance of Washington. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Marnie.
Were you surprised by the findings in this study today?
No, we've heard a lot in the recent years of CTE, and they noted the bias that individuals who had been exhibiting symptoms during their lifetime, behavioral and other, were the ones who many of them had donated the brains. But the incidence is high, and 99% is significant as we look forward to understanding this issue more.
Exactly. So let's talk about what we can do to push this forward and to help people who may be dealing with it. Specifically, what does this report reveal about how CTE, or traumatic brain injuries, are being handled?
Well, I think one thing Dr. McKee and the study referred to was that this is preventable. So doing more in prevention is still a critical piece in what we have worked on for years. The other, another one of the doctors who was not involved mentioned that we need to emphasize individuals who are having behavioral or have been football players in behavioral, or anyone out there who suffered a traumatic brain injury, that you can get support and services today and now, and that it's not something that you don't have supportive services in the medical community to help you enjoy a higher quality of life.
So there are resources out there, and I want to walk people through some of what we know to be potential symptoms of CTE, because surprisingly, it cannot be diagnosed until after an autopsy.
Correct.
But here's what we think, according to some experts: memory loss, confusion, impaired judgment, aggression, depression, anxiety, impulse issues, and in some cases, suicidal behavior. So when we look at those symptoms and you talk about prevention or intervention, what does someone do if they have had some traumatic brain injuries, they've had some hits to the head, and they're noticing those things happening?
Well, what we've found is the closer to incidents of you receiving supports, the better off you will be, that there's more that can be done. So it's getting support from your medical providers, from your family, from an organization such as the Brain Injury Alliance. We have a resource center available with a toll-free number, 877-824-1766, that we provide those types of supports. We match you with a resource manager. We work one-on-one with individuals to really navigate all of the symptoms that are a number of different, from their medical community to a legal community to others. So getting help early on is critical.
And let's talk about what's happening as far as legislation and safe play on the field. What are you seeing as far as changes that are making the game safer so that we'll see fewer of these injuries?
Well, one piece of the study was that they acknowledged these individuals were those who had played in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, well before we started really looking at any type of prevention, keeping people safe while playing, removing them when in doubt, sitting out. So the legislation passed, the Lysted law here in this state, a leading law in youth concussion prevention, really worked its way up to also be influencing the NFL. And so those type of parameters that are now, Dr. Herring, things that are done on the field, removing an athlete, professional, youth athlete, anyone, but so that they can be reviewed by a trained medical professional who understands traumatic brain injury, concussion, because a concussion is a traumatic brain injury, and I always like to make that point, is a critical piece. And so much more is done. So much more is done to provide a safe environment for the youth or adult player that we weren't doing even as early as late as 2005. This only happened 7 years ago. So we're still learning, and these studies are moving this type of information forward.
Exactly, and it's getting us talking about it, which is the important thing, because awareness is key. Deborah, thank you so much for being here to provide that information for us. And if you'd like more information on concussions and brain injuries, we have done a lot here at Q13, so be sure to check out our website, q13fox.com, as we continue to follow this issue.